Today, perhaps more than ever, women are being guided to believe that the silence of the body is a sign of absence, emptiness, or emotional failure. But what if it is exactly the opposite? What if that stillness is the soul's first murmur? When a woman chooses, consciously or unconsciously, to step away from the games of desire and the cages of superficial affection, something deeper begins to rise within her. It is not absence but presence, not lack but expansion. Carl Jung would say that all repressed energy always finds another way to express itself. And when the body is no longer distracted by immediate pleasure, the soul finally gains the space to speak. Have you ever wondered why so many women, after periods of abstinence, describe an unexpected spiritual awakening, a heightened sensitivity, more vivid dreams, sharper intuition? This is no coincidence. It is a summons. The body, deprived of external touch, turns inward. And there, in that long-forgotten inner land, a woman discovers parts of herself that had never been seen, neither by herself nor by anyone else. And this is not only about celibacy. It is about transmutation, about an energy that stops searching in others for what can only be cultivated within. A society shaped by constant sexual validation fears the woman who withdraws because she becomes unpredictable, mysterious, untouchable. Even more so because she begins to see beyond the games, beyond emotional repetition, beyond the masks of relationships that imprison more than they liberate. Jung would call this an encounter with the shadow, a moment when a woman stops seeking to be chosen and begins to choose. Not to love in order to be loved, but to love herself with such depth that everything superficial dissolves on its own. There is a kind of silence that is not emptiness. It is a sanctuary. And when the body comes to a halt, it is because the soul is preparing to ignite a light that disturbs. A woman who lives without sex or relationships is not dead inside. She may be more alive than ever. What looks like absence is actually an overflow of inner presence. What looks like loneliness is a profound communion with something no passion could ever reach. It is in this space that the archetype of the wild woman awakens, the one who reconnects with ancestral wisdom, pure instinct, a femininity that does not require an audience. Can you feel it? This calling is not for everyone. It is for those who are exhausted from trading their essence for moments of false connection. It is for those who understand that what they truly seek is not found in anyone's bed, but in a radical encounter with themselves. And if you have read this far, perhaps you are closer to that path than you realize. Yes, the body becomes quiet, but that is not weakness. It is strength retreating to become power. And when the soul begins to speak, there is no return. Because a woman who has heard her soul will never again accept the low volume of an ordinary love. There comes a moment in every woman's life when the noise of the world becomes unbearable. Not the external noise, but the inner whisper of expectations that are not hers, desires she was taught to want, affections imposed as unquestionable truths. And it is in this deep exhaustion, almost invisible to others, that the journey back to herself begins. Carl Jung said that everything we deny within ourselves returns as destiny. And perhaps that is why when the body chooses silence, it is not failure. It is a sign that something greater is trying to emerge. The woman who begins to withdraw from impulses that once guided her without fully knowing why is already hearing a quiet call that comes not from flesh, but from soul. That woman, even unknowingly, begins to feel a longing without a name. It is not nostalgia for a man, a touch, or a passionate night. It is nostalgia for herself, for a place she has not yet reached but knows exists. In this context, abstinence is not punishment, it is a doorway. And by crossing it, she begins what Jung called individuation, a radical path toward wholeness, where she abandons the projections placed onto others to finally recognize herself. The emptiness that appears is not absence. It is space being prepared for something more authentic to be born. It is within that space that memories begin to ache differently, not as wounds, but as clues to a greater narrative. Past relationships, nights ending in tears, cycles repeating without reason, all begin to make sense under a new light. Because the woman who embraces silence is not retreating from life. She is rewriting her story from a new angle. Her inner self begins to observe emotions as symbolic mirrors of an unconscious that had always spoken, but which desire had drowned out. Slowly, she realizes she no longer needs applause or external validation. Her worth is not measured by how much others desire her body, but by how deeply she can hold the presence of her soul in stillness. At this point, an almost mystical force is born. The force of the woman who no longer needs to be chosen. And this is where the world begins to fear her, because it does not know what to do with someone who has stopped begging for love. She becomes whole, and therefore threatening to everything that still lives in fragments. When that woman understands that her vital energy is not dormant but withdrawn, she enters a new state of awareness, one without urgency or proof. Because the silence of the body is not punishment. It is a language, and that language can only be understood by those brave enough to inhabit their own depths. Jung would call this a reconciliation with the feminine unconscious, a reconnection with ancient symbols buried beneath centuries of repression. And this reconciliation does not happen through words, but through presence. That woman is only beginning to emerge, but the path is not gentle. A discomfort arises, an invisible anguish that gnaws from within. When a woman distances herself from immediate desire, from familiar touch, from another body beside her, she also distances herself from everything that once made her feel she belonged. What remains at first is a raw unease, as if the world no longer registers her existence, as if her absence from the game of desire has made her invisible. Jung would say this marks the beginning of the shadow encounter. The part of her that lived in adaptation, hungry for validation, now refuses to continue pretending. She begins to question herself, wondering if she was wrong to step away, if she is losing time, youth, and opportunity. Society screams that a woman's time is limited, that she must remain in motion, desired, performing expectations. And suddenly, she fits nowhere. She is no longer lover, wife, muse, or girlfriend. She is simply herself. And that pain cuts deeper than abandonment. Abstinence begins to feel like punishment, but it is not. It is a trial, a symbolic passage that only prepared souls can endure. Temptations appear. Old patterns knock again. Easy invitations return. Everything seems designed to test her. And the cruelest part is that no one understands. Friends question her. Family urges her to go out, to stop isolating. But it is not isolation, it is immersion. And not everyone is prepared to witness someone descending inward while the rest of the world drifts across the surface. Jung understood this as an unavoidable phase of individuation, the moment when the ego trembles because it is losing command and the soul quietly begins to guide. It is within that muted despair that many retreat, slipping back into familiar patterns, settling for lukewarm affection, persuading themselves that possessing something is preferable to holding nothing. But the woman who remains, even through tears and uncertainty, is being formed by something far larger than herself. She is being invited to end the cycle, and cycles are not ended through force. They dissolve through awareness. The tension she carries is not a mistake, but a passage. The cocoon constricts before the butterfly emerges, and this is precisely what is occurring. A new being is forming within the darkness of stillness. Somewhere inside, she knows it. Even if she cannot articulate it, even if she fears she is too isolated, too misread, too intense. There is a voice that never shouts, yet persists. A presence that does not reveal itself, yet remains beside her. That presence is the symbol of the archetypal feminine, the anima Jung described as the bridge between awareness and mystery. Through her, the woman begins a conversation, and as that inner dialogue deepens, clarity follows. Her body is not paused, it is engaged in ritual. A ritual forgotten by the modern world, yet one her soul has always known how to enter. Then something shifts, quietly, almost unseen. A new understanding begins to open. What once felt like restlessness reshapes into deeper inquiry. Why did I need to feel desired to feel alive? Why did another's absence feel unbearable? What part of me still depended on the gaze of others to exist? Because the woman who chooses silence is not abandoning life. She is rewriting her story from a different vantage point. Her inner self starts to observe emotion as symbolic reflections of an unconscious that always spoke, but was drowned out by the noise of desire. Gradually, she realizes she no longer needs applause or external proof, that her value is not measured by how much her body is wanted, but by how fully she can hold the presence of her soul in quiet. At that moment, something almost mystical is born. The power of a woman who no longer needs to be chosen. And from there, the world grows uneasy, unsure how to respond to someone who has stopped pleading for love. She becomes whole, and therefore threatening to anything still living only halfway. When she recognizes that her life force is not dormant but gathered, she enters another state of consciousness. A state without urgency, without the urge to demonstrate worth, because the body's silence is not punishment, but language. And that language is understood only by those brave enough to inhabit their own depths. Jung would call this a reunion with the feminine unconscious, a return to ancient symbols buried beneath centuries of suppression. That reunion is not achieved through words, but through presence. And this woman is only beginning to rise. Yet the journey is not gentle. Restlessness appears, a quiet anguish that no one notices, but that consumes from within. When a woman distances herself from immediate desire, from familiar touch, from another body beside her, she also steps away from everything that once made her feel she belonged. What remains first is a raw discomfort, as if the world no longer registers her presence, as if withdrawing from the game of desire renders her invisible. Jung would describe this as the first encounter with the shadow. The parts of herself she denied for years, adapted and starving for validation, now refuse to perform. She begins to question herself. Was withdrawal a mistake? Is she losing her mind? Is she wasting time, youth, possibility? Because the system insists that a woman's time is limited, that she must always be moving, attracting, fulfilling roles. Suddenly she is nowhere. Neither lover nor partner, neither muse nor promise, only herself. And that solitude cuts deeper than abandonment. Abstinence begins to resemble punishment, but it is not. It is a trial, a symbolic passage only prepared souls endure. Temptations surface, old habits knock, easy offers return. Everything seems arranged to test her resolve, and the cruelest part is that no one around her understands. Friends worry, family urges her to go out, to stop isolating, but this is not isolation, it is immersion. Not everyone can watch someone dive while they skim. Jung saw this as an essential stage of individuation, when the ego resists and the soul quietly assumes command. Many surrender here, but the woman who persists through doubt and grief is shaped by something beyond herself. She is summoned to end the pattern. And patterns fall through awareness. The pressure she feels signals transition, not failure. The cocoon tightens before transformation. Something new is forming in silence. She senses it. even in fear, even in loneliness. A voice insists, a presence accompanies. The archetypal feminine awakens. Through her, the woman listens. Her body is not withheld. It is protected. Space is being preserved for love born of fullness, not lack. When the transformation completes, she no longer needs pursuit. She becomes the center, the fire, the light. Those who cannot meet it fade away. Those who approach later will not come halfway. She no longer accepts a dimmed life. When the body quiets, the soul chooses. And the awakened soul never returns to what wounded it. She rises not back into the world, but as the world, every step intentional, every choice guided by self-worth, not fear. What was once need becomes choice. What was compulsion becomes discernment. She can love, but from overflow. And when love comes, it will not come to complete her. It will arrive to walk beside her. Her soul was already complete. This new state awakens something deep within her, a sense of direction, of meaning, of clarity. She understands that her experience was never only personal, it was symbolic, that her quieted body represents countless women who were also taught to depend, to distract themselves, to surrender. And now she feels the urge to become a beacon, not to guide the path, but to ignite the flame. Because only one who has met herself in the darkness can show others that there is nothing to fear there. Jung would call this the expression of the self, when the soul no longer seeks approval, but demands expression. Everything she lost along the way, old loves, fragile versions of herself, relationships where she had to shrink to belong, no longer wounds her in the same way. Now each loss feels like freedom. Every absence feels like an answered prayer, because the woman who endured abstinence of the flesh has discovered nourishment of the soul, and that nourishment sustains her from within. Nothing external will ever be enough unless it resonates with what already lives inside her. And so she prepares not to return to former roles, but to occupy a new place in the world, a place where her presence is sufficient, where her voice carries substance, where her silence is revered. And when her body desires again, it will be through conscious choice, not emotional dependency. When love arrives, it will not find a woman in need. It will meet a woman whole, grounded, prepared. Until then, she remains steady, not in deprivation, but in watchfulness, because now she understands, yes, the body is still, but the soul is finally speaking. There are silences that appear cold, yet hold embers. There are absences that from the outside resemble loss, but within are fertile ground. And there are women who, when they withdraw from the world, do not fade. They ignite on another level. When the body grows quiet, it does not perish. It becomes an altar, a sacred space where the soul gathers the courage to speak. And everything that once seemed like lack of life now reveals itself as divine presence, gestating a new identity, clearer, rarer, complete. Nothing lived is ever wasted. Everything is transformed. Desire that was once urgency becomes discernment. Pain that was once an open wound becomes a scar of wisdom. The woman who moves through abstinence with awareness is not abandoning love. She is learning to love from a place where there is no hunger, only abundance. And within that quiet abundance, she becomes untouchable, not because she cannot be reached, but because she can no longer be manipulated. Can you sense the echo of this path within yourself? The wordless nostalgia, the discomfort of no longer fitting into places that once felt like home, the urge to retreat without fully knowing why. That is not weakness. It is the first summons. Perhaps this video did not reach you by chance. Perhaps it is a mirror of something that has long pulsed within you, waiting to be named. And now that it has been, something has shifted. If this journey stirred a forgotten part of who you are, allow yourself to continue. Do not extinguish the spark that has been lit. Share this message with someone who also feels her body has grown quiet, but does not yet understand why. Leave a comment sharing how this resonated with you. And if you wish to keep walking with us in this same depth and honesty, subscribe to the channel here. Every word is a seed. Every silence is soil. Every video is a ritual, because in the end, this is what remains. A woman who has learned to hear what the soul whispers when the world becomes too loud. And that whisper says, "You are not alone. You are awakening." And as this awakening settles, she begins to move through the world differently, slower but clearer, softer yet unshakable. The urgency that once pushed her to explain herself dissolves. She no longer needs to justify her choices, her solitude, her rhythm. There is a calm authority in her presence, a quiet gravity that cannot be imitated. People sense it before she speaks. Some feel drawn, others unsettled, because she mirrors what they have avoided within themselves. She does not preach. She does not convince. She simply embodies, and that embodiment becomes medicine. Jung believed that the most powerful transformation occurs not through instruction, but through example, through being. And this woman, rooted in her inner world, becomes a living symbol of what is possible when one stops running from oneself. She understands now that love was never meant to be a transaction, nor a performance, nor a rescue. Love is recognition. And before it can arrive from another, it must be fully lived inwardly. This is why she is no longer afraid of time. She does not measure her life by milestones imposed from the outside. She measures it by alignment, by truth, by the quiet satisfaction of knowing she is not betraying herself anymore. Even desire changes its language. It no longer shouts, it waits, it listens, it honors. And if it is not met with the same depth, it fades without drama. Because she has learned that peace is more seductive than chaos, and clarity more intoxicating than intensity. The world may still try to pull her back into old narratives, to define her by what she lacks rather than what she has cultivated. But she sees through it now. She knows that the greatest rebellion is not loud defiance, but silent integrity. To live according to one's inner truth in a world addicted to distraction is an act of courage. And courage, once awakened, cannot be undone. There will be days of doubt, moments when the old ache returns, when the memory of touch or belonging resurfaces like a ghost. But now she meets it differently. She does not run. She does not numb. She listens. And in listening, she integrates. This is the final alchemy. Nothing rejected, nothing idolized, everything held with awareness. This is how wholeness is born, not as perfection, but as coherence. And from this coherence, her life begins to unfold in ways she could not have planned. Encounters feel fated. Words land with precision. Silence becomes eloquent. She trusts herself because she has faced herself. And that trust becomes the ground on which everything else stands. If you recognize yourself in this unfolding, know that you are not late. You are not broken. You are not missing anything. You are remembering what it feels like to belong to yourself, to be your own home, to stand in the world without armor, yet without fear. This path does not promise comfort, but it offers truth. And truth, once lived, brings a peace that no external validation can replace. So walk gently, honor your pace, protect your silence. What is growing within you does not need to be rushed. It needs to be respected. Because when a woman learns to listen to her soul, she does not disappear from the world. She returns to it, transformed.